Okay, Renuka.
Thank you. Morning, everyone. Um, Will has invited me to offer a tribute according to a Thich Nhat Hanh's tradition, which is also the Plum Village tradition. So, people who don't know Thich Nhat Hanh, but actually, first of all, I'll just say who I am. So, I'm Renika, and I live in London, and I'm following a Buddhist path currently. I grew up in a Hindu tradition, but now I've chosen to follow a path that is very much around mindfulness. And I don't know if some of you have heard of Thich Nhat Hanh. He's our great teacher, our beloved great teacher who passed this year, and also leaves a very amazing community in the Plum Village tradition, which is a retreat place in south of France, but there's also many retreat centres in America and other countries. So yes, Will invited me because we met way back in 2018 and on a retreat that I'd organised for one of the monastics who used to live at Plum Village. Her name's Kyra Jewel, Sister Jewel. She was known then. She's now derobed and offering many teachings of Thai and other traditions, and some of you may have heard of her out there doing her stuff. She's amazing, and I think we both, Will and I, both have been inspired by her. And my inspiration was really to continue organising retreats for people of colour, BIPOC communities, which was a first in Europe, I believe. So it's quite a pioneering thing to do, and also to navigate through people's feelings about that, because as we know, Buddhist communities, or you may not know, are predominantly white. So it was quite a breakthrough to continue with having weekly or regular meetings. But we achieved it as a community, and we're running those weekly meetings online now due to obviously the pandemic. And Cara Jewel then eventually moved over to the US. She had been moving around, but now she's settled and moved to US. So we don't have her anymore. So we are now a community that offers Thich Nhat Hanh's practices. So if anybody's interested, I'd really love to hear from you. We're called Colours of Compassion, Sangha. Um, I could put my details in the chat at the end. Yeah, okay. So my mind's a little bit scatty. Sorry
So
about
you were
that.
going to tell us about the robe and your process of ordination, which just happened last month. Don't you
Okay,
know? We want to hear what you've achieved.
thank you,
She's
Will.
being
Okay.
coy. Can you just please stand up and show us? Just demonstrate this robe
Okay.
you've earned.
Okay. So this brown jacket, as it's known, and I'll just kind of turn the camera this way. It's a jacket that's given to you to after a period of um, recognizing actually that you want to be part of a community, and the community is called Order of Interbeing Community. And I came across this tradition 19 years ago, and at that time I didn't feel like it was my community. So, what I'd said before is that part of my process of earning the brown jacket or going through the ordination was to build a community that I felt like it was my home. And so, the people of colour community was one part of it. And so now there is a Sangha. I feel quite honoured to be wearing this jacket. It was a process of being mentored and following some trainings called the 40 mindfulness trainings. And they're really a guide for us to live with joy and less suffering. I mean, who wouldn't want that, right? So I I'm still continuing training. It's not like you complete and have a tick box in that checked, but it is an ongoing practice and path. So the brown jacket is a a ceremonious thing that you get offered after you've been through a ordination process, which I did, as Will said, last month at Plum Village, and it was a big deal for me. It's honouring the lineage of Thich Nhat Hanh. It's accepting and recognising that I, my ancestors are here, and that I will continue to share the fruits of the Dharma with other communities, and so I feel that I do feel shy. It's the first time I've put this on publicly, so thank you for being here for me to be able to do that. So I'm pretty new at this because I've just been blessed with it, but I have been asked to do a practice called the Three Refuges. Now, would you like me to continue doing this now, Will? And if everyone is ready, I would just say that the Three Refuges is also like a frame. It's like a holding place for us, a place of sanctuary, a place of go to if we feel there's rough waters, there's places where we don't feel very steady in. And by reading this, it really allows me to feel held and and contained in some way. So I will use bells. I'm not sure if you've been using bells throughout the week. It is part of the tradition of Thai. It's allowing us to come to the present moment, which is a wonderful moment. So come into our breath. So if I invite the bell, you can allow yourself to connect with your breath, your body, the sound of the bell, and then I will read the Three Refuges. And you don't need to kind of analyse the words. You just let them be, let them fall on you like rain, and then let them go. So listen to this wonderful sound. Brings me back to my true home. The Three Refuges. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and of love. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community that lives in harmony and awareness. Dwelling in the refuge of Buddha, I clearly see the path of light and beauty in the world. Dwelling in the refuge of Dharma, I learn to open many doors on the path of transformation. Dwelling in the refuge of Sangha, shining light that supports me, keeping my practice free of obstruction. Taking refuge in the Buddha in myself, I aspire to help all people recognize their own awakened nature, realizing the mind of love. Taking refuge in the Dharma in myself, I aspire to help all people fully master the ways of practice and walk together on the path of liberation. taking refuge in the Sangha, in myself. I aspire to help all people build fourfold communities, to embrace all beings and support their transformation. Thank you for allowing me to put that out there for you, and I hope you have a beautiful day.
Thank you,
Oh,
Renika.
I would like to introduce Will now. Let me know when you want that happening, Will.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, as I said earlier, for those who came late, Will and I met on a POC retreat, a BIPOC retreat that was organised by myself, but also held by a monastic Plum Village tradition, Kaira Jewel. And that was back in 2018 in a place in Horsham. And it was a little cottage and a barn, and it filled out. And at those retreats, we did the Plum Village practices, the Thich Nhat Hanh's tradition. And I think Will came to it by accident. I think he was feeling quite low, quite depressed. He was in an environment that was very white, very suburban, very not conducive to him, that's for sure. So he found the BIPOC retreat and came along, and he was moved by what Kyra had said about absent fathers, and it moved him, and he met a few other people that also shared their stories, and I think Will had really taken on some of the proposals that Kyra Jewel was requesting the community to do, and one of them was that we all need to do our bits, and we need to set up retreats and support other people doing retreats. And so Will and I have been on this path of setting up retreats and building communities. I feel like we're walking this together, Will, hand in hand. I know we hardly see each other, but I know you're there, and that makes me very happy. And I think later on that year, in 2018, Will had met Rhonda McGee, and I think from then on he set out his intention to build communities, and this is why we have these retreats. But it's not been easy for Will, I know that. He is of Latino heritage, and in BIPOC spaces, he can be invisibilised, along with some maybe other groups, constituent groups. But he's felt quite a minority in UK. It's not a big community, so it is to be recognised that that's been quite a strong intention for Will to be visible, and I'm sure it's not easy, but he's been bold and courageous, and has, I can see right in front of me, building great communities of all backgrounds, and I think there's sometimes that he's had to fight for his place. He's been feeling pushed out on the edges of even BIPOC places. There's a lot for us to do here. From a South Asian community, I know that we have a lot to do about our backgrounds and our history in being inclusive of all communities. And that's the work that I carry on with my South Asian communities too. So I want to honour Will for being a volunteer here, being able to put such great events on like this, calling on revered people, from US, from all parts of the world. It's a real gift for us to be here and have these teachings. And what else can I say? I think his intentions for all of us is to transform, transform our suffering from our ancestors, heal, and go forward and not pass it on to the next generation. So, on that note, Will, over to you.
Okay, thank you for that lovely introduction. Gosh, I'm really humbled, and particularly what you said about walking the path together. Um, I'm reminded of the Christian footprints in the sand that actually say, "Where were you in my times of danger?" And um, and the saying says, "I was carrying you." That's why there's only one footprint in the sand, which is just remind me of that. But many congratulations to you also for the work and the leadership that you've done in establishing the POC in the UK, the Colours of Compassion. Um, it's never easy starting anything from scratch with lack of resources, with doing it on our own self-care time even. So we're doing it with very little, sometimes with no role models, or very little sometimes to model ourselves after. I know you had Thich Nhat Hanh, which is um, such a big loss to all of us in his teachings, but his teachings and his work lives on through us and through Kyra Jewell, who inspired me to continue in POC traditions in this country. Um, and I think we're just at the beginning of POC traditions. We're the first generation, really, of POC teachers in the UK. I'm referring to mindfulness, but I guess that may even apply to Dharma. Um, and yeah, so it's a really humbling intention to consider, okay, what are we going to put here for the next 7 generations of people in this country? But anyway, so welcome to day 8 of 9 on the Quest for True Belonging retreat. I can't believe I'm here. I can't believe that so many days have passed, and we have enjoyed so many community members gifting us with all sorts of healing modalities and richness of their ancestors, richness of what they carried across the seas, what they've carried across the diaspora. And yes, as a Latino, someone who is part African, part Native American and European, um, our landing, where we land, where we belong, is more complex than a lot of other people. But so today we're here to explore belonging. So today will be in 2 parts, and we're here for an hour and a half, and then later in the evening at 6 p.m. we're joined by our patron Rhonda McGee and Chris, who's actually with us right now, who will be hosting the session, who runs an organization called Diaspora United, which I like, just exactly what the doctor ordered, really. So I'm looking forward to seeing Chris and what he brings to the table. But okay, so we're going to start with a standing meditation. And I've recently fallen in love with this practice. I knew it has always been there, that practice, but every time I stood up, I always seemed to fall. And and in the last few weeks, I just got up and I said, okay, I am tired, but I'm going to experience that tiredness in the body in full. That no matter how my body is um, uh, letting me down, that I am going to stand there, even if it's 5 minutes a day, until I break that habit, until I fully really engage and immerse with what it means to be so tired and worn down and everything else that being held in the body. So I welcome you to stand for about 10 minutes with me if you're able to. If at any point in those 10 minutes you feel you need to sit down, also do what you need to do. But so let's start. So I always take a few deep breaths when I do this practice. And I always give my body a little bit of a shake. I bend my knees a bit and just maybe acknowledge the tension. Just acknowledge whatever it is you're coming into the space with. And just breathing in, down into the diaphragm, down to the toes, and maybe if you're able to putting your focus of attention on the heels. So we're grounding ourselves, we're anchoring ourselves into the ground, pretending, or not even pretending, acknowledging that we are part of this large organism called Earth, a living and breathing planet. So breathing into that energy, that source, that chi energy, as the Chinese call. As you breathe into this lovely energy, allowing the jaw to drop and to soften, recognizing the importance of the circulation of the breath from the tip of the nostril all the way to the exhalation, to really, just really release and let go of whatever it is you've been carrying all week, whatever's harming you. I like to think of them as toxins, but sometimes I like to think of them as unuseful thoughts and thinking. And sometimes I imagine that I'm in a forest, and sometimes I really am in a forest or under a tree. So this is also known as Jamzhong in China, the tree meditation. And in this meditation, there's no right or wrong way of paying attention. It really is about non-judgmental tuning in, noticing the shifts, maybe bending the knees a little bit, noticing any trembling in the body, noticing the breath just self-regulating itself, and just the ease that this practice can bring in terms of the flow of the energy. And for some of you recovering from illness or even exhaustion, just do what you're able to. See if you can bring your attention to that discomfort, the hard edges of everything we're bringing to. And remembering in this meditation, you're not standing motionless. So you're able to rock, you're able to move, you're able to go, just shift naturally with the hands. Taking again some deep breaths into the body. Maybe letting go of any concepts of in and out breath. Maybe allowing the whole body just to breathe through the skin, through the pores, through the soles of the feet. Noticing if your body feels heavy or light. So as you begin to settle into this posture, you may notice your hands just slightly tingly. Perhaps just wiggling your fingers a little bit, just lifting your arms just gently, just a small few inches from your body, just naturally. Maybe you're breathing into a difficult area of your body, maybe emotional or mental pain. So just being gentle with whatever's arising, breathing around these hard edges. Perhaps you may be noticing the vertebrae, your back aligning itself, adjusting. Your shoulders relaxing, softening, your back. Maybe just raising your arms a little bit each time as you continue with this posture. Tuning into your environment now, noticing the temperature around you, the sounds, light, just noticing the stillness. And if you haven't already done so, again, begin to soften the cheeks, the jaw, just breathing, allowing the exhalation to really drop, almost like an opera singer. So as you're grounding and settling in, just imagining the roots from under the soles of the feet, really anchoring your body, really nourishing your place here on the earth, just nourishing your body, nourishing your toes, your ankles, and the soles of your feet. And perhaps if you're able to, maybe raising your arms to your shoulder level, almost as if branches on a tree. Just noticing, maybe palms towards the inside of the body, shoulders relax, raising the arms slightly. Just noticing the tension, the Goldilocks moment, bending the knees. Notice any temperature change within the body. Noticing the impact of standing still. So now we're going to bring our hands down slowly as we begin to end this standing meditation. And I'm going to invite you to As you sit down, maybe sit down slowly, get a sense of how your arms and hands feel, and then maybe turn your cameras on if you want to give me some feedback on how that went for you. Bye, Renuka.
Bye, Will. That was a
Bye.
lovely meditation. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Okay, so just by showing hands, how many people have done that for the first time? 2 people, 3, 4. Okay, okay. And so, how did you find that? I'm just curious. 5 people. Who would like to? Zenobia?
Um, yes, okay, thank you. I've done walking meditation before, but standing, that for me was quite new. And I found it quite, I don't know, it's hard for me to say. It's lovely. I'm recovering from COVID, so I didn't think I could do that. But standing there, I felt really the sense of support. And I felt the sense of connection with everybody else practicing, actually. That sense of being grounded in the same body of the earth was very strong. And even when you were saying about raising the hands, it felt as though the hands were raising themselves. And then after a while, I could feel I could feel that. So I allowed them to slowly come down. And so it was a really good opportunity to listen to my body in a very different way. And I really picked up on what you said. The body is never still. So there was this constant sense of going with the flow of what the body was doing without, as best I can, not interfering with it. So that was my experience. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Naya, did you want to say something?
Yeah, just to repeat and kind of just, it's very early for me. I didn't sleep well, so I'm tired, and yet standing there, the kind of support, feeling the support of my body, almost kind of independent, that my not having to work to stand there, like my body was holding itself, and feeling that connection, and like the strength of my bones, really. I could really feel kind of the push of the earth up, and my connection with it. And then, yeah, that flow, that kind of natural rhythm, and just kind of letting myself flow. And even when I was holding my arms up, it's like my arms were kind of resting on my energy field. I didn't have to hold them. They were just kind of resting there. So that was new. So yes, thank you that was a completely new experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Naya. That's interesting, isn't it? That how we can bring new experiences to our black and brown bodies in such a short practice here in community, but also a practice that, as I said, I've come to really love because I can see the effect in transformation. And it's really empowering what you said, that, oh, I was tired, I was sleepy, and I came in and I did it 10 minutes and it changed my energy, and I can see you smiling, and so it's such a lesson, isn't it, for supporting our bodies through recovery, as Anubia said, through COVID. Barbara, any comments?
Yeah, it was, thank you so much, William. It was very interesting. I decided to stay just sitting down because I'm recovering as well. But what is interesting is that I really felt that sensation of coming home. It was just like going back to my body. And right now I can feel that it's heavy, but it's heavy in a way that is resting. I think it's just the stress from whole week, and just being able to sit with my body, in my body, really helped me a lot this morning. And I can, there's a continuous of this awareness. Even though we have finished, the formal practice, I can still feel that in my body. So this a very unique experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. And I guarantee if you keep practicing this, that you'll have many more experiences that will surprise you. I mean, for me, I was in a monastery recently, and one of the nuns did it with me in the forest, and I felt, at first, I felt like I didn't want to stand up, like an awkwardness as to this is not going to do anything for me because you're just standing there. But actually, by the end of it, I felt really, really light in a way that I hadn't really experienced that before through sitting practice. It was as if the body had sourced its own mechanism of repairing itself, and that was like to me really new. That the body was almost guiding me, the energy. Incredible. Anyone else? Beverly.
Hi everybody. It's the first time here, and it's really lovely. Thank you very much for that, Will. I started to do mindful movement just as part of my training this year, and I was surprised how much I got from it. And this morning I've been feeling really tired. I am tired generally from just a lot of activity that I do in my daily life. And it's really been important for me to try and take up space in the world. Yeah, just to feel that I'm taking up space. And it's been important for me also to engage with movement, even though, like you say, I'm tired. And I was really feeling my legs today, and in the tiredness, how strong they were and how they were able to still take up space even through the tiredness. Yeah, so thank you very much. Yeah.
Again, really encouraging and very empowering to know that we could actually breathe into our pain, physical pain, and maybe even emotional pain, of course, emotional pain. And so it's really good evidence here, isn't it, so far? Yeah. So anyone else before we move on to?
I'll just share I'll just share that I really enjoyed it as well, William. And it's been a really difficult week for me this week. And just like feet on the ground, hands up, whatever, I was standing in my truth. That's what I got from it. No matter what came at me, I was standing in my truth. So yeah, I found it really, really powerful. So, and strengthening. So just to share that.
And that's so important as people of color, where so often the truth has actually been denied or has been tainted, or not our truth, or we're dealing with all sorts of systematic oppression and racism, and actually to stand still and think, can the body really process this? Can the body really can that really make an impact? So I think it will, because I'm going to continue to practice this. And I will invite you all. You will, if you're not on the newsletter, you will see it in the newsletter. We'll just do the standing meditation. So that's an invitation. Okay, so if there's no more comments, so today's presentation is the courage to love, and it's in two parts. Well, part one this morning and part two in the evening. And maybe we can just start by looking at different people in this space and the sort of, I'm wondering, by looking at people, what's your first impression of people, where they are in the country, where they are in the world? what their ethnic mix might be, where they've traveled from. It's not always easy to know that, isn't it? You know, so often that people have been really refused to see us, haven't they? They really refuse, or they project a different sense of who we are, right? They limit us. And we've also heard comments like, you don't belong here, or get out, go back to where you came from. But in these 9 days, we've explored what it means to belong, what it means to claim your place, to claim your truth, to stand tall. We've been blessed with practices of self-regulation. We've been blessed with Qigong and African-centered practices, and practices really from all over, really unexpectedly, and even Rita presented a few days ago. And Barbara sitting there didn't present on this occasion, but she is from Mexico, and she's just completed a PhD living in Wales. So there's a real growing community here, isn't it? But I guess what I'm trying to say is we all belong. I belong, she belongs, we all belong. No one can actually really change that, no matter what they say. We may actually believe the opposite. And these are the delusions that we must work through for our own well-being and mental health. So Swabona, anyone knows what that means? Swabona, from South Africa. I think it's from the Zulu people. I see you. Swabona. So Sakona means I am here to be seen. I am here to be seen. So there's a relationality between us and them. So I need you to see me, to witness me, in order for me to exist. So there's something really important, isn't it, about belonging, being seen, and how somehow that contributes to our sense of place in the world and to who we are, right? So there are roughly around 2 million people in the UK right now who have experienced loneliness, according to a recent study, which is quite a lot. 50% of men actually, in another survey, said that they experience not having a friend in which they can confide in, which is quite a lot, actually. Another study by Running Meat said that loneliness actually contributes another 46% to how you process and experience discrimination. That's a huge margin, 46%. So if you are alone and feeling without community, it affects you in a catastrophic way. So isolation, fear, and othering are real growing threats to mental health. And all you have to do is a Google search to notice the rise in research in this area. Is so important, so important. And it is the future for POC, with all of us. But we're here to explore what it means for us in these communities. So last year also 26 million people did their DNA tests. So they put their spit in a bottle and sent it off. So this is between here and the US. I'm wondering why. So I think people are constantly looking to belong, to where their roots are. People are looking for information around their health. People are looking for the truth around who they are, right? I think POC spaces are actually quite sacred. They're really sacred spaces. And here in the UK, we're shaping. We are the first generation of mindfulness teachers. But in the last few years, I've also seen a polarization of what racism is. And it seems a real black and white issue with no one in between the black and white issue. I don't really think that's very helpful for POC spaces. I'd like to see spaces that are really inclusive POC spaces, because there are gifts that all of us bring from the ancestors in these collectives. I want to learn from people who don't look like me and from other places, from around the world, right? Well, a recent study by Dr. Eric Kaufman said that by the end of this century, 33% of people in the UK will be mixed race. And 50 years after that, 75% of people will be mixed race. 75% of people living in the UK, that's a huge amount. So what does that say really about the changing demographics and how inconsistent the terms like POC or BAME or Black, how inconsistent, how delusionary separation is. It's really delusionary, because anyone in this room, your great or grandchild could be white or black or brown or beige. You wouldn't exclude them. That would really change your sense of othering and how you're viewing the world. I think a lot of academics actually also view race as a social construction, but they don't necessarily tell you how that construction feels. So there's a lot of investment on, okay, race is a social construction, but how does it feel? How does it feel? So these spaces here, we have to define them. We really have to work them. We have to work hard to really claim these spaces. Yeah. Oh, swabona, swabona. I like the word. It seems to rhyme. Swabona, sakona. I see you. I'm here to be seen, so everyone matters. So today, this is an invitation, isn't it, to explore your narratives, your truths, and what else? Your beliefs. So we will go into a breakout room for a little time to explore this. So I'm going to take you back to where I grew up, which was in the Bronx, New York. And in the 80s, New York was, well, it was an eye-opening experience. I think in many ways, it really showed me suffering in a profound way, the changing nature of suffering and the actual causes of suffering, the oppression, the othering, the systematic racism. It was actually in the 80s the most violent place on the planet, or surely one of the, it was high up there, certainly. They call it the melting pot. And well, where I grew up, there was certainly a lot of gun violence in the background. And it was actually also the time of a great pandemic called AIDS, where 37 million lives were actually claimed. 37 million. So that's almost as much as the Second World War. Almost as much as that. Yeah. And for me in particular, I had to attend many funerals of friends in secret, gay friends, in my teens. So I couldn't necessarily disclose to my family where I was going and what I was doing. But that combined with the violence made me think, okay, do I really want to stay here in the land of the free? So I said goodbye to Lady Liberty and to Ellis Island and moved to the UK when I was 18, not really wanting to return to America. And I suppose as a first immigrant family from south of the Mexican border, I never really felt that the American dream was something that related to me, even though I'm part indigenous and consider myself mostly Native American. I thought this is not for me. That's not to say that we don't have our own problems in the UK, but yeah. So the gun violence actually hasn't changed. So far, unfortunately, we've had 27 school shootings this year alone in the US, including in my own state of New York. My family was no exception to the violence. I mean, we lost two young people in our family, both of which were 16 years old, my nephew and my cousin. So yeah, really, really difficult times. I think for many people of color, the battle for equality to be seen and heard, it goes on. It's an ongoing journey. And for I like to think that for every person here who gets to show up and tell the story and explore their truths, so many didn't make it. So many, um, through slavery, through oppression, so many didn't get to be here. So what does that tell you? It really tells you how precious your life is, how precious this moment and every moment is, and how precious your life is. It's actually incredibly humbling thought, to think that you've made it. You've made it. You've made it to this moment, to this time, considering all of the so-called limitations that we attribute to ourselves or that other people attribute to us, right? So I like Maya Angelou's quote, "You belong nowhere. You belong nowhere." So can mindfulness make that difference? You know, we're still a young industry. We're still really finding our way. But I think there's something even more elementary to all of us, to the human spirit, which actually guides us. I like to call that faith. Faith, um, many of you might refer to as God or the divine spirit, but that through this connection, one thing is certain, is that we do belong. When you really are in synchronicity with your truth, there's no one that can actually tell you that you don't belong, right? Swabono. Swabono. I like that word. Um, doesn't a lot of this come down to belonging? I think if you actually look at a kaleidoscope, I don't know how many of you have, a kaleidoscope's like a tube that you look into, and it has like, I don't know, loads of thousands of colors in it, but no color actually overshines any other color. In fact, they all need each other, right? They all need each other to survive. So what does that say really about how we're also viewing whiteness? How we really need to consider and rethink about these spaces, right? Yeah. So where am I going? Back to New York? Back to New York. So, you know what? When I was in the last 9 days, as I was exploring and practicing with the community, a memory suddenly hit me. And it's funny, isn't it? The body really stores everything. And this memory was of a young Black girl, probably about my age, 10 years old. Um, and growing up in the projects, it seemed like an eternity just to get to the lift. You know, you just walk down this hallway and you'd pass so many doors, but her door was always a little bit open. And she would just pop out of this door almost a queue every time and this went on for 10 years. And I didn't really think about it much or didn't tell anyone, but every time I passed the door, she came out with a punch. and she would aim for my head, and it was like so automatic, like an instant reaction. And I could either duck, I could run, I could go around the other floor, but it was just interesting to recall that memory, to recall that child. Now that we were doing this work, and what did that mean, really, right? Why would a child do that? And I sat and I thought about this, and I remembered one day when I got into the lift, and she was in the lift. She was there with me and my grandmother, and I was hiding behind my grandmother, and peeked out and saw her. And at one point, our eyes met. And so this was like a different kind of proximity. It was almost the closest, well, the only time I've been with her without being hit. And at that point, she saw me, and I wasn't a threat. She seemed to humanize me, but I saw her too. And we saw each other, and there was an exchange. And in that exchange, changed everything. And as we left, as the door opened of the lift, I grabbed her hand and she squeezed it. And that was the last time I saw her, because a few days after that, she was actually hit by a car. So I didn't really think about that really until a few days ago. But there's something about, there's really something about how we miss each other, and how we don't communicate. And sometimes not just children, but sometimes even adults can't verbalize some of that early trauma. We can't put words into the trauma. Actually, words get in the way sometimes because they don't really synchronize with those early experiences of being othered. I can just imagine so many things that happened to that girl at home. I could imagine the violence, the absent father. But I'm wondering also how many opportunities I missed. I'm wondering if I myself reacted like that to anyone, just very dismissive, or even, I guess, I've never been violent, but maybe dismissive or making them invisible. But what does that do to the other person, right? What does that do to them? How many degrees of separation does it take? How many acts of invisibility? How many acts of violence? How many acts of oppression? How many does it take to go in the other direction? And how much work does it take to come back? What are the steps that we need to actually come back and heal each other, right? This is it. These are the steps. This is the grounding, healing yourself, being with yourself, doing the standing meditation. This is it. Because this makes you more present and available to those around you, to other people, right? Personally, I get a sense of emptiness. I empty out when I do the standing meditation. I let go of everything, and I become more available. So I don't really want to miss those opportunities when I encounter another girl who I never knew her name. We never spoke. 10 years that went on, the hitting. And all it took was for her to see me and for me to see her. No words. I'm wondering if we should promote this to the United Nations. If I got a big marketing tool here, right? maybe we should do less talking and more looking. We can send it to Russia too. So yeah, so where are we here? Just take a moment to really let that process in my mind. I'm still holding that girl in my heart, actually, because she didn't have a chance. She would have been what would she have been doing now? With her life, what, and so many other children in the Bronx who never made it out of that neighborhood. We know the statistics, and they're not good. I don't even want to mention that because uh, you will know this. But here's a good memory: refuge. And my refuge from a young age was looking through the window of, and we had such a lovely view high up on the 8th floor, and I could see the whole horizon and all the rooftops, and I love seeing the sunrise. I've always developed this habit, unfortunately, of getting up at 4 or 5 and with the sunrise. And there was this right across the street. There was this man keeping pigeons, and there was so many different cages. And every morning he would let them out, and the display in the sky of the forms, just beautiful dance shapes, and they were formless in many ways. And it was really healing, just looking at the colors and looking at the beauty of the planet, looking at the things that man cannot control, like the rising of the sun and the flight of those pigeons. So I really enjoyed those spaces of that was my practice, and that really I must have been about 5 or 6. And at night I would sit under the stars, and I would look and I would pray. And I didn't grow up with parents. I was an orphan. I had my grandparents. And I prayed that God would guide me through my whole life, that I would never lose that connection, because I knew for some reason I would have my own challenges in life. And so that was my prayer, that God would always be close to me. And yeah, I feel that we all have it in us to call on that divine spirit, that source, in the worst times, and then when you most need it. It is never far. It is never far. So how can you ever feel that you don't belong? Because this belonging is created by man, but there is a creation that's even stronger, that cannot be controlled by man. So there's a lot of power within your body, within you. There's a lot of power within what you say, within what you think, with taking an active approach to your own health by standing like a tree, walking meditation. Simple. Keep your routines and practices simple. You can pray. You can look at the stars. You can adapt the pigeon mentality, like I do, if you ever have that opportunity. But if you go to the coast and you see the birds, it's there all the time, right? But there's a lot of power in our intentions, right? There's a lot of power in what we say and what we do, how we treat each other. Desmond Tutu said, you belong to everyone. You belong to our history. You belong to the pain you're feeling, to the tiredness, whatever the circumstances. You belong. And I need to be reminded quite a lot, actually, that I belong, because there's so many times that we're feeling the opposite. So it's quite nourishing to have ancestors, right? Because he's now an ancestor like him, actually feeding us the message of simple. Just I'd like to hear that. That I belong. Simple. I just like to hear that. So we're nearly at the end, but I was thinking that reading an article, it said that nothing travels faster than the speed of light. But actually, I think love travels faster than the speed of light. I'm not sure which is more powerful, the love that we have, or the speed of the warmth of the sun, you know? Because I feel that we actually need both on a daily basis to survive, right? I think just like a drop of water holds the past and the future, I think a single moment could actually hold it can hold all of time. So those of us who really grasps that moment, grasp the entirety of life, of that journey. So Swabona, I see you, Sekona. So yes, feel free to unmute yourselves, make some noise, and any comments. We were going to do a breakout room, but maybe we should just stay in the chat.
Thank you so much, William. That was a very powerful and moving communication there to all of us and with all of us. And I just wanted to say that the warmth of the sun is an aspect of love. It is not separate. Of course, we need it, as we need the sun in our hearts. It's not different from the one up in the sky. So, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Will. Really moved by your sharing and resonated in so many aspects of my own life. And Zenobia, yeah, I have this, that if my path is the path of divine love, and that's how I see Creator, my beloved creators. And if the sun is the creator, we are the rays of that sun. So we always have that warmth of the sun and of that love, like you said. And for me, my only prayer is love. I really believe that love is the only prayer. In each moment, to choose love over fear. And this is where my mindfulness practice really helps me, you know, to come into that present moment when everything is rattling all around me, and, you know, everything is to come into that sacred pause, that breath, rooted in Mother Earth, grounded, you know, and then can I choose love over fear? Because it's always fear underneath anything that I'm feeling, resentment, anger, whatever, there's always the fear when I go down to the core of it. And that bridge over fear is love and faith. And that's how I work on myself. That's how I work with other people, to remember that ray, that to remember the light of who we truly are. And I just wanted to share two things from what you shared there, Will. I watched a documentary on BBC a long time ago, and it was an Indian woman married to a white English man and had a mixed race child. She was a genealogist. And she took us through a journey in this documentary, which I cannot remember what it was called. It was so wonderful. She did all this research of what it means to be mixed race, what happened, you know, and like you said, Will, how much we're getting mixed and mixed and mixed. And when she did all this fabulous journey that she went through, and all these countries she went to, and all these genealogists and other people and testings that they did, do you know where the greatest gene pool, because the more mixed you are, the stronger your DNA, the more intelligent you'll be, the more everything on every level she showed us. And the greatest gene pool in the world is in Brazil. It is in Brazil. And what she did at the end of the program, she got all these very young people, you know, those famous steps in Rio, those pretty long steps in Rio. She got all these young people, she put loads of paint and paper and stuff on the side. And she said, describe your color, paint your color and name it. And all these young people in all their different colors and hues and everything, it wasn't just black and white or, you know, brown even, you know, it was all these shades that are here right now, but they had all these fabulous names like cinnamon and chocolate and, you know, ivory and everything you could think of, right? And it really warmed my heart, because it was like, I really truly believe that we're not here to separate. I believe that our journey here is to be in connection with each other and know. And you said something earlier, William, that always kind of, it's for me always separating out what is loneliness and what is being alone. And can I be at peace with my aloneness? And aloneness comes from the word all one, which comes back to what you were saying, William, is when I have that faith in something greater. Yeah. I mean, we just have to look at nature, right? We just have to look at Mother Earth and be in awe of creation. And when we can feel all one and connected to the earth, to our breath, to our heart, right? Then we never need to feel lonely. Yeah. So I just wanted to share that because I think this is such, it's so important for us, particularly as people of color, when we, so the standing meditation, like you said, well, you know, like I experience as well, is gravity keeps me, right? It holds me up, regardless of what, you know, as long as I haven't got some serious injury or something or disability, it's holding me up, right? And I know for me, I wasn't always standing strong. And it was because of all my beliefs and negative conditioning and, you know, all the stuff I'd picked up. And every time I do a standing meditation, it's like you saying, Will, I stand in my truth. I stand in my light. I see you. I see you and I want to be seen. Yeah. So thank you for today. It's really powerful. And I bless you and bless you in your journey and for sharing that with us today, William. Thank you so much.
Cindy.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. And yeah, it's lovely to see everybody. And yes, I see you. I see you, and that's so wonderful. And thank you, William, for sharing. Yeah, you shared quite a lot, you know, from the UK being 75% mixed in the future, and your very sad story as well, you know, of your experience with another child. Yeah, very interesting. All the different topics and about love and how they all connect and being alone. But the whole idea of seeing, I think, is very important because I think, like everything else, it begins with self. And I used to have one of my many serial businesses that I've had. I used to have a business that I ran, which was all about, it was called I See Myself. And the reason for that was to do with making books more multicultural and more accessible to children, so that when you're in a school, you know, the children see themselves from all backgrounds in the book and the text that they're reading. So that was one of my business that I ran for a while. And it was amazing how many people used to just recognize and see that when they see the books, they're always so surprised when they see them. They see a book and they had all sort of people of color on them, you know, children of color, that children could see themselves, and the excitement of picking up a book that would have themselves in it. But one of the other things that used to come out when people used to come up to buy books would be, it's not just for children, it's also that adults need to see themselves as well. Because if you grew up as a child, you know, reading books that were predominantly European centered and European images, then you obviously would not have seen yourself growing up either. So therefore, as an adult, you also need to see yourself. And so I always think that it's the most important thing about seeing yourself, that it starts with self. You've got to see yourself. And then I think after that, the next aspect of seeing is also seeing each other as well, you know, seeing other people who are like you as well, because that's how life is, you know. You're coming from a family where you're all going to be looking a certain way, and then you go out and you see into your community, you do find that your community probably look like you as well. And then, you know, and then you broaden it that way, you know. But the most damaging thing, I think, more than the wider other people seeing you, is that you need to see yourself. And then your people in your family need to see you. That's where you get your first recognition from, that the people in your family recognize you and see you, and they build you up to be a positive person, so that when you step out into the world, that then you know where you are and you stand grounded when you step out into the world, if you have that positive family background. And I think the reason why some of us are kind of separated and disconnected is because the family structure isn't there, and a lot of it, the grounding that we need to step out into the world, is not there. And then we expect that to be bolstered by our communities and by our schooling. But again, a lot of that doesn't recognize us. Like, for example, in schooling, when we go into school, our textbooks don't recognize us and those sorts of things. So therefore, when we step out into those arenas, then it means that, you know, if you haven't got that solid foundation at home, then it also means when you get into school, you don't see it either. And then you get into your community, you don't see it. So it really is just something that it's a step-by-step approach. But I do think it belongs initially in the family. And even if you have it in the family, even if you step out into a community that don't recognize you, you can still get by. And you can be the change as well. And I think that's important for all of us to know, and also for people, you know, with families, children, and those of you who might be in education, that it starts there, and that it belongs there, and that if you want to make a change within your establishment, you can make those changes there as well, you know. And I think that is, I mean, the sobono, as you said, like, you know, being the Zulu word, don't know if I spelt it right, but that's something just to keep in mind as you go through your day. I'm definitely going to be keeping it in mind. So thanks for bringing that up. You know, as we go through the day, that's something that we lose our connection with. That we should see people, and most of the time it's almost like we're deliberately trying not to see people. And that when you come into organizations, that we recognize each other as well. I always I look at it this way. I've been part of many organizations in over the years, and joined many. A lot of them I've been from African Caribbean communities or mixed communities, and unfortunately, I think sometimes when I step into some of them, you're not seen. You know, people. I always judge it by whether you get a warm welcome, a tepid welcome, or a cold welcome, or an extremely warm welcome. You know, and you know, I was thinking about it as you were saying that, William, about the Sobono and how we step out into this community of the UK, you know, wherever we are. How often do we get that very warm welcome? You know, most of the time it's either a kind of cold or tepid, and we don't really see that warm welcome. And if it's something that we can get from your talk, and certainly I can get from your talk, is I would like to lift that a bit for myself, you know, and practice that warm and that very warm welcome. Because thinking about it, as you were saying it, I thought I was only probably, of all the organizations I've been part of over my time, I've only remember going to one where I received an extremely warm welcome, you know, and I felt so good, you know. But apart from that, I would say, you know, it's been from cold to tepid most of the time. So maybe that's something we could all practice in our lives, you know, and in our journey as we go through, whether it's our work, our communities, in our families, you know, teaching our children all those things as well, how they approach other people as well, because it's also part of the next generation learning, you know, that they actually see you. Because the other thing, sorry, I'm not going to go on anymore, but the other thing, just before I finish as well, is that the younger generation, that they are taught how to see others. And one of the ways practiced in our old community is that you see the elder, those who are older than you, the elders, you should see them. And I recognize that some of the younger generation, they don't do that. They don't see the elder. They don't see, and when I say elder, I'm not even talking about, you know, little granny on the old stick, you know. I'm talking about somebody who's older than them and respecting age and that sort of thing, which has to be taught within the family and within the community, so that we see that, you know. And I think that would go a long way, that it begins with children, and that can only begin from us taking that individual responsibility to share with each other and starting to educate the young people as well. So thank you And thank you for this whole sessions that you've been doing as well for the whole week. I've really enjoyed all the sessions that I've come to, and thank you for your time and your energy.
Thank you so much for your share. And I think just to recap, just that we all have a lot of power in our intentions and our words and our actions. Is that what that comes down to? As you were talking, just made me think how Japanese greet each other by bowing. You know, a sign of respect. I quite like that. Anyone? We still have 10 minutes left, actually a little bit less. Anyone want to share? Welcome, Joe Jean, in the space who came in. So this will be uploaded to our YouTube channel, and for those who missed the session. Naya?
Sorry. Well, first, thank you, William, for such profound. There's so much to kind of think about and process and take from that. And what was kind of coming to mind as Cindy was talking was a practice my father has. Like when he's from the Caribbean, he's from Trinidad, and his experience when he comes to England is the kind of the disconnect, and how he's made mindful decision to, he will greet people in the street. He will say, you know, good morning, good afternoon. And we kind of have coffee in the park. We make time to have coffee together in the park. And I see that because I'll be in the same park, and that kind of, as Rita was saying, the kind of fear, that kind of defense, I need to defend myself against other because I am other and blah, blah, blah. So I will have a different experience in the park. And then my father will be in the park and he'll be saying good morning to the little kids on the bikes and to the, you know, the fathers with the pushchairs, and people immediately light up and respond. And it's such a different, you know, experience. And so what Zindi was saying about having that experience of feeling welcome when you go into a space and feeling cold when you go into a space, and then the reflection, okay, I am part of that space and someone else has come in. What welcome am I giving them? You know, because if I'm I need to defend myself, they may be receiving that as a tepid welcome. Whereas if I am kind of what the theme, because I came into this not really, you know, the word of belonging and what it means. And so I've been hearing the layers of the belonging to self and belonging to truth and belonging to love, but then also us belonging to each other. And so the kind of the layers of acceptance and truth in ourselves and seeing it in others. And so to kind of make that a practice of, with the I see you, I welcome you, regardless of what happens after that. So I'm going to be taking that practice on. So thank you so much for that.
Can I just share one more thing from my culture? When we say namaste, we're saying my mind, body, and spirit greet yours. We put our hand to our third eye and we bring it down to our heart. Okay, that's how we greet each other. We're saying, I see you, I see all of you, and my mind, body, and greets you, so I see me too. And the other thing we do with our elders, particularly revered elders, is we will touch their feet and then do namaste, because it's a humility. We're dropping our ego, and it's like to our ancestors, we're dropping our ego by coming to the floor, you know, lowering our head, our ego, and saying, you have some wisdom, something to impart to me, some knowledge, something, right? And I respect you for that. And in our culture also, we don't call anybody elder to us by their first name. We might use their first name, but we'll always call them an auntie or an uncle, even if they're a friend of, we just don't use an elder person by their first name. Not in my culture anyway, you know. So I just wanted to share that these things are really kind of important, I think, you know, and we're losing a lot of those things, and even people in my culture, we're losing a lot, especially in the West, you know.
So thank you, Rita. Anyone who hasn't shared, just we'll have like another 5 minutes. I've just put in the words Swabona and Sekona into the chat. I've also put our crowdfunding. So if anybody wants to give any dana, which is a Buddhist practice of generosity to the teachers for the 9 days, it's actually on our website. So if you look on our website, register for our newsletter, and our crowdfund is there. Give what you can. If you can't give, that's also too. It's all about giving and receiving. And so yeah, any closing comments from anyone? Beverly, Tamika?
Well, I've spoken before, so I'll just keep this very short. I just wanted to say something about traditions and ancestors, which is that they are not fixed either. As we move forward, we can take certain traditions forward if they have the aliveness to go forward. Certain things, we might need to lose them because they do not any longer apply. So we have to come from the heart with this one and not hold on to things simply because they were. We need to create new things to hand on to the next generation. And they also have much to teach us. I just wanted to say that.
So belonging can also mean letting go and shedding.
That's right.
And creating a new we, a new us.
A new us.
And you know, it's interesting that all of this about belonging is occurring during the time of hyper divisiveness in places like the US. And I think it is fear of losing the white majority. It is fear that whiteness is turning into something else. And as I said, the kaleidoscope, there are things that man cannot control, and is very delusionary to think that you can control the gene pool. that somehow you're going to be able to do something that will stop people from travel, from mixing, from this and that and the others. It's quite, it's the ultimate human delusion. Yeah, I'm not pointing at any particular countries who's doing that, by the way. Okay, so, okay, well, we've come to the end. And I've really enjoyed today. It was nice. It was just incredible to recollect that little girl who never had a name, and yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? The people in between are here and there that sometimes we don't really think about, right? Yeah. So with that said, thank you all. Sending you all lots of love. A big hug.
Big
Thank
hug.
you.
Thank you so much, William. Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Thanks. See you later. Take care.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you, everyone.
It's 6 o'clock later. 6.
6 o'clock later.
See you at 6. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, Beverly.
Bye. Lovely to see you, Rita.
Oh,
Did I?
we have